Hello, William. Welcome back to the show.
Hello, Lian. Good to see you after all these years. I don't know if it's years, but it feels like a very long time. And hello to everyone watching as well. Hi.
Hello. It has been, we couldn't remember. It was during the kind of peak of COVID. I know that, but yeah, I mean, that was like kind of lasted 2 years and 2000 years. So
That's right. Yeah, I remember it was going to last 3 weeks, right? We're going to flatten the curve and
but here we are, and I know you've actually been going through some quite challenging, differently, but some challenging times in the last week or so, which I was saying might provide a kind of a backdrop for this conversation that you can use as examples. So let's dive straight in with what I would love to explore in this episode, and I'm sure we'll get into all sorts of things around kind of creation and magic, but very specifically, I wanted to focus more this time on talking about the idea of kind of victimhood versus that kind of intentional magical creation. So just want to start with, what do you mean when you use that word? What's your definition of that?
a very, very good question, because it can cause offense, the term, and certainly misunderstanding in terms of how we use that kind of language. Because I differentiate between the creator in us, because everyone has a creator in them, and the victim in us, because everyone has a victim in them. Your egoic nature is very much a victim nature, and then you got your creative self, which is a sovereign and powerful, self. And what I mean by victim is, a victim is somebody that things happen to, right? Can we agree on that? A victim is somebody that things happen to. And so that's what we mean by a victim. We don't necessarily mean a downtrodden, oppressed, abused, crushed individual, damaged person. We mean that you're living your life from a point of view of life happens to you, that how your life goes is dependent on what's happening by the circumstances in your environment, what the government does, what your parents did to you, just whatever, you see, it's your problems, your circumstances, it's happening to you, versus a creator who happens to life. You see, when you're in your creator, you happen to life. Life doesn't happen to you, you see. You're the predominant creative force in your life. I mean, you can't be entirely the creative force in your life, right? There are other factors in life, but predominantly life goes the way you intend it to. And otherwise, you go with life the way life's happening, and you perceive it to happen, and you go with what's happening, and you respond, to what's happening. And so it sounds a little derogatory, but when you understand our sense of the word, it's very accurate.
Yes, I think that's a really
creator.
Yeah, it's a kind nice. There's a simplicity to that definition that's hard to argue with, I think, and also, as you say, this is true for all of us. We all have moments where it feels as though life is happening to us.
Yeah. And we that side of ourselves feels powerless. And it's that side of us that colludes and tells everybody else our problems. And when you listen to people, and when you listen to yourself, if you're in that mode, it's all about how they've got the power, they did this, they doing this, it's everything outside of you has the power, and you can feel like that, right? But it's actually not true. We have the power, and we have the power to give our power away. Just as that.
Yes, yeah, we have the power to do that too. Absolutely. Yeah. So in the years that you've been working with these kind of concepts, you could say, what do you find as people are understanding that distinction and recognizing that that could be a choice for them? What do you notice is I guess the main challenge is in that actually truly being a choice, as opposed to a theoretical kind of like, oh, that makes sense. You know, like I can see that that could be true. What do you see is creates the opening where someone truly is able to have that embodied experience of coming out of that feeling of being done to, being a victim?
Well, I don't think it's an instantaneous magical insight. It's a process of realization that takes learning and takes training. I don't think there's any kind of hack to it, right?
Mm,
And to be honest, I've never, and I'm just being honest, I've never known anybody who's arrived at that kind of power that we're talking about. Really power where you operate out of your creator as a foundation and deliberately and impactfully, right? That you're the predominant creative force in your own life, and that you powerfully have life resemble how you'd love it to be, right?
mm,
Um, I don't know people that sort of arrive at that randomly. The people that I know that
mm.
arrive at that are trained, or learned in it, right? Um, and I just don't know of any other way. When I'm interviewed, and no offense to you or any interviewer, but often, and you've never done this to me, so this is not about you, right? But often interviewers, they need some red meat for their audience. They got to have it. They got to have, person's got to listen to their show and go, wow, I can use something from that. And so they always want a takeaway. And at the end, they say, what advice can you give to our audience, right? That the listeners here that they can use, to overcome this and that, and whatever it is, whatever the focus the show is on. And I go, I'm an honest person. I go, honestly, I have nothing. I have nothing. I have nothing to give them, right? I have nothing to give them, because I can give you something. I can always give you something that can get you out of your funk now, right? But it's like that saying, you give a person something to some fish to eat one day, they're going to be hungry the next day. But if you teach them to fish, they can look after themselves for the rest of their lives. And it's like that. It's like, well, I can teach you something that you'll use now, right? And I could take you through something very instantaneously now, and it'll kind of make you think positively in that. But the mists of Avalon will creep over again overnight. They'll just come in, and you'll be in the same funk tomorrow, and you won't be at all empowered. So what I can advise you is get trained, develop yourself as into your creative power, as the creator you are, because that resides in you. The whole thing, the cliche of education, everyone knows it, right? Oh, education comes from educare, which means to bring forth, to draw out of. It's just talk, but it's true. It's true. People blah 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 blah, but it's true. That is what education is. Education is that you are introduced to what is in you, and you bring that forth to use in your life, right? And so that takes some training, and that's been the case all through history. There've been trainings in one form or another where people are educated in their creative nature. I mean, it's really interesting even to talk about education, because you see, up until the Industrial Revolution, or even just practically up till the Industrial Revolution, it's very interesting. If you received an education, you were educated in alchemy. How about that? That was your education.
Wow.
Neoplatonic
Mm.
philosophy was the basic education that you received, right? And it's alchemy. So why do you think all the people educated, in history, in Occidental culture in the West, Why were they all so brilliant? The educated class. There were
Mm.
very few of them. Why were they so brilliant? Why was Blake, why was William Blake so brilliant? Why was Michelangelo so brilliant? All of these people, you don't know it, but the Renaissance, which you think of as this incredible movement that brought us out of the dark ages into our modern technological society that we have today, came through the Renaissance, right? In every form, art, creativity, technology, innovation, inventiveness, everything. I learned about the Renaissance in school, and I imagined this enlightened time in history where everyone, even the peasants in the fields, right, were just like enlightened people, and no, the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, sorry, which was the Enlightenment, right? The Renaissance was participated in by 1,000 people. That's it. That's who participated
Wow.
in the Renaissance, 1,000 people. They were the educated people in Europe, right? There weren't any other educated people. And whoever got an educated, as I said, your education was Neoplatonic philosophy. But, you learned some reading, you learned some writing, but you learned Neoplatonic philosophy, which is the use of the imagination, which is, it's the most pervasive strand of alchemy, Neoplatonic philosophy, right?
Wow, that's
Alchemy
incredible.
all alchemy is the use of the imagination. That's why
Mm.
you have the romantic poets who are brilliant. What were the romantic poets obsessed with? They'd been educated and they were obsessed with the imagination and the power of the imagination.
Mm.
You see, and Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, all these people, very inventive, they had their imaginations unleashed. They were educated. They had what was in them, brought forth this creative spirit to use, you see. And so without that, you can't really, you see, the thing about it is you can't really be in your power. The fact of the matter is that all, all strong word, most personal development, even healing, you see, even healing modalities, they come from a victim perspective. And it's not like people are introduced to their power and then introduced to techniques that you use from your power. They're introduced to techniques, their victims are introduced to these techniques. And it's their victim using the technique.
Yeah, which is
Like, for
continuing to
instance,
have life done to them, including the healing. Yes.
so you see, you can get healing techniques that they have some cathartic benefit and temporary benefit and all of that, right? And that can seem to work in that, but you see, fundamentally, the person isn't healed, because healing, again, playing with words, right? Healing, the definition of healing, or the origin of the word healing, means towards wholeness. So to be a whole person, right? So you see, like if you take some kinds of healing modalities where it's like, okay, what your problem is, it was caused by some trauma in your past. So let's go back to the trauma in your past and we'll revisit that trauma, and then we'll reframe it, you see, and you'll meet the people that damaged you. They'll be sorry, which isn't real, right? I mean, let's face it, they're not really there, really sorry. So it's it's in a way, it's bullshit, and you'll forgive them and they'll leave you with a present and whatever, right? And it's like, so that, and the cathartic, there is a lot of cathartic benefit in facing things, in going back and just facing things and recognizing that they happened and all that. But you can just see from what I'm talking about, just that process of these people apologizing, you forgiving them giving you a present. You're a victim. You're a victim.
I'm
You're a victim.
just imagining this being used as the clip. William Whitecloud, you're a victim.
In that scenario, you're a victim, you see. You see, you were damaged, you were hurt and all that. Whereas if you visit that experience from your creator, and this is what everyone experiences, right? If you visit that experience from your creator, you go back there and revisit it. It is very useful. But now you go and visit it as your creative self. You have the ability to stand in your creative self and re-experience it, not reframe it, by the way, re-experience it from the point of view of your creator, from that reference. Your creator has no problem with it. Your creator doesn't feel damaged. Your creator doesn't feel dented. Your creator doesn't feel scratched. Your creator's bulletproof. Like, no, it's fine. It happened. It happened, right? Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. It happened. It was shit even, right? It was awful. But because some things are awful, right? You don't want to go through that. It's unpleasant, right? But it doesn't mean anything. It didn't dent me. Actually, it happened. It doesn't mean anything, right? And nothing. And I don't want to make any claims, and I don't make medical claims, but we have seen the most profound transformation in people who are carrying real baggage and all of that when they experience it from their creator, right? And yeah. And it really then really they really do free themselves of the baggage. They really free themselves of the past. The past really is over, and they are made whole in integrating that trauma and experience because they realize they don't make something, reframe it and make it like, oh well, it's okay, so we can move on, right? They recognize in that it's nothing. There's nothing. It hasn't, it's done anything to them, right? And so they connect with their wholeness, their perfection, as it were, their spiritual perfection, you see. And so, but anyway, I mean that's digressing, right? But yeah, it takes training. Because you asked me, sorry to ramble on, because you asked me, well, how do you come to this? How does it happen? And it's like training, and it never was not through other means of training.
No, I love that.
Another mean other than training.
For me, that's so helpful for us to know, because I think in our modern culture of the hacks and how quickly we can do something, I think what you've just shared there is such helpful context, because I know myself, I agree with everything you've said there. It's like the context with which we're doing something changes the thing. Like you're just describing, if we do the same healing work or similar healing work from sovereignty versus from victimhood, the whole experience is different, the whole outcome's different. But I think the thing that is so missed is that, exactly as you're saying, these are traditions that, right up until very recently weren't something that everyone had access to, but at least the ones that did understood this was probably a lifetime's worth of study. It wasn't something that you just kind of thought, oh, that's a quick fix. It was actually like a devotion for a lifetime. And I think that's so helpful to know, because what I see often happens is, otherwise, it's easy for people almost to get victimized by the fact that it isn't instantaneous, that it is hard, that it does take practice, that it does take years of continuing to kind of like, okay, this is a choice I'm making and will need to continue to make each time that kind of like that pull back into life's like being done to me. That's something each time, and I'd love to know your experience of this. But talking personally, like, there are times still where that's like a temptation to like, oh no, this time if life is really doing it to me, and it's an opportunity to sort of kind of come back again and make that choice again, to reorientate again. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
it's a discipline. It's a lifetime practice, and it's an education, and it's a discipline. All of these people of whom we speak, the greats, the former greats that we revere historically, right? You know, they were trained, and they practiced. They applied, and they practiced, and as you say, they were devoted, and they were dedicated. As Bob Dylan, he's got a brilliant song, right? Ain't talking, just walking. Brilliant song, huh? And you know, he sings there in that song. He sings, "A practice of faith that's long since been abandoned." You know, it's like that's
Oh,
right. Yeah, a practice of faith that's long since been abandoned. Practice of faith, right? Practice, you see, it's
yeah.
long been abandoned. You see,
That's giving me chills.
yeah, chills,
Mm,
right? When you hear the song, my
mm.
God, it's like it's an odyssey. That song is up there with any, you know, epic poem or odyssey ever. You know, it's just you just listen to that song. Ain't talking, just walking. Listen
I
to it.
can't believe I
Yeah.
don't. Maybe I do know it, just not the title. My father was a huge Dylan fan, but I don't
Well,
recognize
it's
it.
actually a more contemporary song of his. It's not one of the old, you know,
Oh,
Learning
okay.
classics and that. It's
Yeah.
a very contemporary song. I think he wrote it for a soundtrack for a movie, like, you know, where they play the music at the end of the movie, and the credits are rolling and all that. You know, it's, I mean, it's just a chilling song. You know, it starts off, he says things like, um, as I walked out into the mystic garden, the wounded flowers were dangling from the vine,
Oh.
and I was walking by that cool crystal fountain, and someone hit me from behind, you know, and then it just,
Mm.
it's just epic. Anyway, epic. And so what we're talking about is that it's a practice, right? And you know, it's an education, and it's a practice. And I'm going to use some very sophisticated aids to explain.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
I'm going to use some very sophisticated aids to describe and explain what I'm talking about here.
William
The
just
old
spoiled me.
rubber band, the old rubber band. People who know about creating, who have studied and mastered creating through the ages, who are the alchemists, and more latter day people like Robert Fritz, who's the author of The Path of Least Resistance, who understands creating very structurally. They understand one thing, which is oscillation. There's an inherent oscillation within us, whereby the alchemists call it the swing of the pendulum. And they say that the alchemists say that the swing of the pendulum to the right is equal in measure to the swing to the left, right? Something like that. I think I'm quoting it correctly. But anyway, they call it the pendulum. Robert Fritz calls it oscillation, structural oscillation, you see. And what that is about, you and anyone listening will recognize this in your life. You have things going really well, and you're on a high, and you feel invincible, or you feel very hopeful, and you feel up and all that. And then you think you got it now. You think, yeah, I got it now. You know, this is it. It's like, okay, I've arrived now. But no, and you're back, and you know, things go wrong in your life. You like, for a time, you're pessimistic. The you know, the creative theories you subscribe to and optimism you had is out the window. And you know, it's this oscillation, right, that you experience. And it's inherent. It's inherent. And here's why. You see, your soul has an agenda. Your creative nature has an agenda. Your soul, whatever you want to call it, your genius side of you, your higher self, your creative self, it has an agenda. You know, you're on a mission here on earth, and you have gifts, talents, and abilities to fulfill that mission. And you have a purpose, you have a direction, and your soul has that agenda. and it has that tension, and it moves towards resolving it, and it starts experiencing that agenda satisfactorily, right? And you're going good, you see. But you see, that causes an opposite tension within you, because your ego has another agenda, which is to keep you safe. And if you trained to certain beliefs and behaviors and all of that, right? It believes that you expanding out of your framework, like your comfort zone, your framework, or it believes that it's dangerous to you, because you will, you'll stop paying attention to what it believes you need, to be concerned about and all that, right? So you see, you start moving out and evolving in favor of your soul direction, while your ego gets jealous. And so that brings up tension for the ego, because it's going, well, if this continues, then our agenda is going to be challenged or derailed. So we've got to start pulling back. So then it starts agitating, you see, and that then gets your attention in that direction, and then the more your attention is in that direction, your focus creates your reality. So now you slip back into creating the experience and reality of your identity, of your ego. And then your ego pulls you back for long enough, and it's sort of resting on its laurels now. It's going, okay, we got the being where we want them, nice and safe. Unhappy,
unhappy but safe.
Unhappy, but stressed out and all that, but safe. And so it starts resting on its laurels. And now your soul's going, it gets jealous and it goes, no, like, right. And so now that's when you start going, I'm going to get myself together. I'm going to pull myself together. I'm going to do another workshop. I'm going to do that, and you sort of pull yourself together kind of thing, and and then you start progressing the other way, and it's oscillation. And I'm telling you, I work with every kind of human being. The richest, the famous, most famous, the most ordinary, the most creative, the most whatever, right? The most damaged. And I was working with a fairly new client the other day, and they so devoted, dedicated, conscientious, as you'd expect a very successful person to be. And they went into the swing of the pendulum, and they're absolutely confounded and very upset with themselves. They failed. It's like, but I've been focused. How did I lose my focus? And I had to explain to them, it's gonna happen to everybody. Everybody, as good as you can be and as focused as you can be, you cannot prevent the swing of the pendulum in any direction. You can't. Even people who want to be unhappy can't prevent sometimes being happy, swinging the other way, and then they're very upset that they're happy, It's like, they just, you can't, nobody can prevent it. This is what I had to explain to the client, is you can't, and that's not what life's about, right? Is avoiding the swing of the pendulum. But you see, that's why people can progress and then go back and be very confused about it, and but they don't understand, and you can be defeated by it, because you can you think there's something wrong with you, you think there's something wrong with what you learned, all of that, but you don't understand structurally the sort of metaphysical structure in place and at play, right? Because when you do, then you understand it, you see, then you understand it. And as the alchemists say, the masterful are not in the in the swing. They allow the swing, they recognize the swing, they know all about the swing, they allow it, but they affix themselves at the apex of the pendulum and let, they sit on the higher and they let the pendulum swing on the lower, right? And so when you're trained, and it takes training because it's not so easy to affix yourself at the apex. You've got to be trained. You've got to know yourself. You've got to understand the principles. You've got to have tried them out. You've got to have faith in them, all that. Because what's affixing yourself at the apex of the pendulum means is that you don't identify. You don't identify with the swing of the pendulum. You don't identify with your perception when you go into the egoic, swing towards the egoic, and experiencing, let's call it the more negative reality and perception and thoughts and feelings and all that, your perception of what's going on in that. You don't identify with it. And by the way, you don't really identify with the swing to the positive. You don't start going, well, I'm invincible, I'm a hot shot, I'm no, you just go, no, I know what's going on. And from the apex of the pendulum, then, right, you see, where you don't identify with the swing of the pendulum, you just understand it, you don't identify with it. You don't give your attention to the pendulum. It allows you a very elevated focus where you're not identifying with your problems, your circumstances, your emotional condition, all of that, right? It's not real. It's not real. And so then you're able to maintain your focus on what is real, what is important, what matters to you, what you're creating. And that's how you be the predominant creative force in your own life, is with the power to do that, because you can target, you can identify what you're going to remain focused on and fixed on. Where the average person will be, happily focused on their positive swing and all the realities that correspond with the positive swing, but then they'll be focused all on the negative, right? All of the aspects of the negative swing, and it's like this. But the masterful are on the apex, letting that happen underneath them, but they on top, focused on what matters to them, what they want reality to resemble, and hanging out for that, holding for that, and it does because you create your reality. And if you're in the swing of the pendulum, focusing on everything the pendulum's presenting you with, you're lost. You're at sea. You're just, the tide's out, the tide's in, the tide's out. You're not going anywhere, right? But if you're above that, and it takes training. That's what the alchemists used to call themselves. I love the alchemists. They had so many names. I mean, like philosophers. Alchemists call themselves philosophers, right? That's what the philosopher's stone is. It's the alchemist's stone, right? The philosopher's secret fire. So that's the alchemist. They had all these different names for them, but my favorite of all of them is masters of reality. They call themselves masters of reality, right? And there's no reality in the pendulum. The reality is above the pendulum.
Yeah, I love that.
Say, Lian, it takes training.
There's something. So I think your elastic band worked really well, just to say. I think as ever, like when we can.
Great, isn't it amazing, eh? Like
it really was. I think with anything where we can kind of have this sense of like the pattern, like a visual sense of like, this is playing out and I'm up here, I think is really helpful. And when, for you, I'd love to know, when you're talking about kind of when you're at the apex and your focus is really there, what would you describe what that focus is on? It could be your values or your vision. How do you name? You're kind of like, you've got your elevation over all of that happening, all that playing out. Where would you say like you are actually focusing at that point?
Well, it just depends on what you're involved in at any given time, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, overall, I advocate making choices like crazy, right? Daily choices. People are trained to have a set of main choices, qualities, aspects, things that are really true to their heart, that they, is true for them to have in their life, be connected to in their life. These main things. And the great thing about having these choices is, first of all, you create them. That's the thing about people who make choices. They create their choices, right?
Yeah, so not even a victim to the choices. The choices themselves are created.
So you create the choices, right? And so then you have a fabulous condition of life and fabulous things in your life, right? Way better than if you don't make choices. You better believe that. And then secondly, that choice making is a focus. So it's like grappling hooks into your creative foundation, anchors you in your creative foundation. So generally in life, you have a more creative focus. So you see, then you've got those choices and that orientation and that mission in life, as it were. And then there's things that are going to happen that oppose that mission, those choices, those intentions. So then when you're above the apex, obviously you maintain your focus on those end results that are structurally important to you. But just in your everyday, you see, there's just, if I can allow to say it, just shit happens, right? Just, things happen. I was saying to you before we came on air about how here we've just had the second biggest bank collapse in US history, and I was caught up in it, right? And man, I stood to lose a fortune. Not a fortune, my fortune, which I've worked all my life for, right? And that wouldn't be funny to lose that, right? There's a lot tied up in that. So that's a very big pendulum swing, right? And comes with all sorts of stresses and tensions promoted from beliefs within, fueled by external input, news telling you what's going on, stoking the fires of fear and all that, right? And so in a situation like that, well, you fix yourself above the pendulum swing at the apex and master your reality. Check out what actually is relevant, the truth relevant to the situation and the solutions relevant to the situation, you see. And there you have it, right? And you see, like just in that case, it's really interesting. My bank is associated with the bank that went down. There were a few banks that went down, but there's the big one, the SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank, huge. And it went down. And my bank is even bigger than that bank. So when it goes down, it's going to be the biggest bank failure in history. And my worldly treasure was in that bank, right? And so anyway, it's associated with this other bank that collapsed and has the same structural problems. In fact, they say worse structurally, you see. So anyway, big panic. And then the government assured everyone, no, we got this. We're going to protect everyone, and we're taking measures and everything like that. So everyone went, oh, they're okay. My bank, oh, they're okay, no problem. But I was above the apex, right? And I got, no, they're not, no panic or anything. But well, actually, I was pretty nervous about it, to be honest. But I was seeing it for what it was. I got, no, they're not okay. They're saying okay, they're okay. The government's saying they're okay. All the other banks are saying they're okay, because they don't want a contagion. So of course they're saying okay, right? It's like, yeah, my marriage is great. Right? We all heard that. And I go, no, it's not. And I've got to get my money out. And was quite a battle, because there were some other people also at the apex of the
Oh,
pendulum,
really?
much bigger than me, much more powerful magicians than me, and they were pulling their money out left, right, and center. And we all knew this. Well, we didn't all know. I knew this is the next bank that's going to go, right, and I just got to get my money out, and I did, and then what do you know? The next day after I get my money out, which I struggled to do, but I got it out. The next day, the bank is then by these rating agencies, Moody's, Standard and Poor's, all that. They come out and they rate this bank as junk. Do you know what that means? Junk. They rate it. It goes from, there's this AAA and AA and
Yeah.
BB. That the lowest you can get is junk. That's the rating, junk. And so then everyone goes, okay, well, this is, this bank's junk, and then it starts the stampede, and I don't know, maybe they'll survive, or they won't, but then no one's reassured, right? And this bank is just finished in whatever form. It may not actually collapse like SVB. Maybe it'll be rescued. I don't know, but it's just I was right above the apex.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
I knew, and I did the right thing, and I was guided to do the thing that is in my highest good, and that's how we live, right? It's not a perfect existence. We're human beings, and we have successes and failures, but it's a very wonderful elevated way of being and creating, where you do live and create with a grounded foundation, with I would say clarity and wisdom, and generally a life process that always advances you in every way, in your health and your wealth and your well-being, and fulfillment and satisfaction. And you are living the magician's way. You are living your innate masterful nature, which everyone has in them, but it has to be brought forth. It is not brought forth spontaneously. I don't care what people say. It's not brought forth spontaneously. You can have visions of it. You can take ayahuasca or whatever, and be totally immersed in it and all that. But I don't know anyone who's done all of that every day of their lives, who ever developed a mastery. They realize their potential, but don't develop a mastery of applying their potential. You got to be trained. Got to be trained.
I think that's so helpful. A lot of the listeners of this show have come from a similar kind of like ascension form of spirituality as I did. And so I think it lends you, I guess, what we're talking about here, that kind of like more of an apex view over your experience. But what it doesn't do is creates that kind of mastery of, actually being the creator, being that creative force. And certainly for me, over the last 5 years or so, I think with the kind of that elevation part, that's come easier, but it still doesn't replace like that mastery, that work, that practice. And like, again, it being like not even everyday practice, really in some ways, like every moment practice, that can't just come, that is the part that will take the work and the intending to, continue doing it.
Yeah. You see, the thing is, if you look at alchemy, there are 3 phases in alchemy. There's actually 4, but we don't worry about the one element, right? It's not worth mentioning. The three, and mostly people don't mention it. It's who know anything about it. There are three main phases of alchemy, which is nigredo, albedo, and rubedo. You see, and nigredo is is the fixed. It's your identity. You know, it's Saturn structure, the egoic structure, right? And which you live out of. It's your default foundation, orientation, perception. You know. And then there's albedo, which is the white light, you see, and that's the ascension, the rising to the higher. So we don't knock ascension, because that's about the apex, you see.
You've such a turn of phrase. Carry on.
No, no. Well, you know, you see, why I say that is because to some people it is like a joke. You get these white lighters, you know, because it's the white light, and then there's the white lighters, and they just, you know, sit there. They're the lotus eaters in the white light, and we call them spiritual wankers, to be honest, right? You know? Right? The spiritual wankers, right? Because they're up there, they know everything, they see everything, they're like, oh, you know, they went one with them. They don't do anything because they don't go to the third phase of alchemy, which is rubedo, which is Mars. You know what? Red, the red planet, Mars, right? Rubedo means red, right? It's red. There's the red. It's the follow. You're meant to go to albedo to get the relevance, the truth of the situation and everything, and the direction, and follow that direction. You know, make that happen. You see, the alchemists, they say there's no gold, because what is gold? Turning lead, nigredo, turning lead into gold, right? And so your egoic orientation led into gold, your highest creative realization. And what they say is there's no gold without the red tincture. It's the fixing agent. So the dream, the you know, all of that, the higher awareness, it means nothing until it's brought into reality and until it's manifested into something, right? Till it's created. Yeah. So a lot of people in the whole ascension thing, they ascend, but they don't go anywhere with the ascension. It's not fulfilling. Not fulfilling.
No.
It's not fulfilling.
Really
and you see, the thing about it is, it's actually worse than not fulfilling. It's the law of use. If you don't go there and then follow through, you're not using, right? You're not using. And so then you're damning yourself. You're damning yourself. You're going to be dashed against the rocks, because your subconscious creates your reality, and it goes, okay, we're here, but we're not going anywhere. Why not? Because we're not really transcending our fears and desires. We're not our beliefs in that. They're holding us here. So actually, we more in our egos than ever, but we're highly spiritual and enlightened and all of that. That's why we call them spiritual wankers, you see.
I was definitely that.
I was never that. I was just a plain out egoic wanker. I never got to be a spiritual wanker. I was just an egoic wanker, right? Big time. Big time. No judgments, right? We've all been wankers. Yeah, you know. Because, you know, wanking's not the real thing, is it, right? That, you know, just everybody's been there, right? Just like being an idiot and not being the real deal, doing the real thing, right? So there you go.
I would love to say you brought us so beautifully to a close, William. I'd be lying.
It's a great way to end. Hey, don't be a spiritual wanker or an egoic wanker.
I keep laughing, thinking of the team, like trying to choose bits to put out snapshots on social media. William, this has been an absolute delight, and if there is any way of bringing this to a more beautiful close, I think the I'm just trying to take us back to the beauty of the Renaissance period, and like parts of this show
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have this, I have this ability to just like sink everything, you know.
Is there anything you would like to say in closing, William? Do I dare ask?
I've just said, I actually just said it, right? It's like, don't be a wanker. Get trained and learn to live above the apex, right? There's no quick fix. There's nothing I can say or do that really going to help you long term in an interview, right? Or in 5 minutes, anything. Train yourself. Get yourself trained properly in alchemy, right? Include alchemy in your education because it's the ultimate education. It's all people were educated in before, right? And they did very well, those people who were educated in it. And it's the real deal. It's the ultimate reward of life. And you know, if you're seeking a comfortable, safe life, well, okay, then that's not for you. No judgment, that's fine. You know, I can direct you to the nearest bottle store, or you know, right? You can you can become an alchemist and find out what you got in you and bring that forth and have the highest, most magnificent experience of life.
Beautifully said, William. Beautifully said. Where can listeners find out more about you and your great work?
You know, so can I just say very quickly, someone was recommended to come to my workshop.
Are you going to just ruin it again now?
Workshop, come and do my workshop. And they did attend. And then the person who recommended said, what do you think? And he said, he's brilliant. No one else could do with rubber bands what he does, you know.
What a recommendation.
What was your question? What did you say?
I said, where can listeners find out more about you and your great work?
Reading my books, really, you know, The Magician's Way, Secrets of Natural Success. Go to my website, naturalsuccessacademy.com, or just Google me, William Whitecloud. It'll lead you to naturalsuccessacademy.com. And we continuously run free trainings that give you a fabulous foundation in what we're talking about now. They're online trainings, do them.
Oh, you're still doing them for free?
Huh? What?
You're still doing them free?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, not all of our trainings, but the foundational training, yeah, where you can get a super foundation and the best foundation you'll ever get in what we've been talking about, quite frankly. There's a lot of it about, but, you know, I mean, if I can modestly say, most people who are doing it have learned from me, right? You know, and so we're the source, and, you know, come to the source and for free. You can find out what this is about. And most importantly, right early on, you're going to find out about you and what you've got inside of yourself. You know, there are people going through this free training right now, and they are blown away, as they always are. And I think you most probably know people who've done it and been blown away. You've done
absolutely.
it. And, yeah. So there you go. But thanks for giving me the opportunity to say that.
No, I really want listeners to go, you know, read all your books, do all your courses. I often recommend Magician's Way in particular. I think it's such, in fact, I literally did a couple of weeks ago. And I think it's just such a, I think for the depth of what you're teaching, but the ease of reading, you know, such a just like beautifully, like it's a kind of book you can read over a weekend easily. And I think it's a really beautiful introduction to your work.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Yeah, it is. I can't argue with that.
Well, I know you need to go, but thank you so much, William. This has been an absolute delight.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this platform. Delight to speak to you as well. I hope we do it soon again.
Let's do that.
Don't wait light years. All right. So thank you. Hey, and thanks to all the viewers, listeners, watchers. Lots of love and magic to you all.
Oh, thank you.